Hi, and welcome back to my Tricycle Life. So today we are going to be talking about general maintenance on our trikes or bicycles, if that's what you have. So, um, what gave me the idea of this video is recently I discovered with our ice bike or ice trike that the bike had a overly stretched chain. And what that means is uh, typically an wear and tear item on your tricycle or bicycle is your drive system, because obviously your drive system is the one system or one group of systems on your trike or bicycle that is always under load, and it's always moving, and it's always doing something. Like in our last video, I told you that I upgraded my front crank on the bike to try to make it go faster, and it sure enough did. It goes a lot faster for sure. Um, but what I discovered was um when the bike was still, I noticed there was a little bit of uh a slack in the chain, and sometimes that means that the wheel derailleur is on doing a job, but also could mean that the chain is stretching out. So, um, I, basically, that's what I figured to begin with, and to get a second opinion, I took the bike to my local bike shop, and sure enough, they discovered that the chain was past due to be changed. What? And you might be asking me, what does that mean? So typically, a normal bike chain is designed to stretch out within time, within use, depending on how heavy the usage. So the prior owner of our ice trike um, probably wasn't told before when they got the bike brand new that they should. That's one of that's one of the things that they need to be checking on about, uh, probably every 6 months to a year. It all depends on how you use the bike or trike. In this case, um, and and in my perspective, you generally would not check your chain a lot, if you, especially if you weren't told that is one of your biggest wear and tear items on your bike. And and judging by the condition of the trike when we got it, that the prior owner loved that bike. They kept it pristine. They obviously took care of it. So that kind of tells me that the importance of some information did not get passed to them, like checking your chain every so often, or you know perhaps um, oiling your chain every 6 months to a year. Um, or it depends on how much you use it. Like if you ride it on the daily, you probably should um, ch- uh, oiling your chain once a month. So in our case, Um, the chain was so stretched out that the next step in this chain's life, so to speak, it was getting ready to snap. So, what does that mean? Well, it means that um, the way it was stretched out, um, it was wearing out the cassette at a unusually alarming rate. It was chewing up the teeth of the cassette. If I still had the original crank on there, it was also wearing out the um, teeth of the chain rings for the crank in the front. So I was told that it would be a good idea to swap out the cassette with the chain, and that is usually the typical thing that you would do when you replace a chain, when the chain got stretched that badly. Because what happens is if you just change the chain, and a lot of people do this, and for most of the reason why they just change the chain and not the cassette is because of budget, and they don't have the money, which that's totally understandable. I'm not gonna be saying nothing about that. I understand because I did that as well once upon a time before I truly understood why you should be changing out your whole entire drive system. So to go back, if you bought a new chain with already badly wore out gears, the chain isn't gonna the new chain isn't gonna mess with the teeth of the um, cassette right, or the chain rings in your crank right. So therefore, you're gonna have issues with with changing gears. You're gonna have all the troubleshooting issues that you're gonna have, and you're probably almost never gonna solve those issues until you change out your cassette and your chain rings in the front. Unfortunately, in that process, I discovered that the iceberg and our green speed trike shares a particular size of cassette. What I mean by that is, throughout the history of cassettes and freewheel cassettes, they they obviously, like everything else, went through a upgrading time, just like cars do. Like you update your car, cars get updated every 10 years or so. As in technology progresses and everything else, so does part design. So to give you a quick rundown on the history of your cassettes and your freewheel cassettes, is I have some pictures and diagrams for you that I'll show you right now, starting now. Um, as you can see in this diagram that you see on the screen right now, this is called a freewheel cassette system. Now, what that means is the freewheel part is what freely makes the cassette move in such a way that when you pedal forward, it obviously engages the hub and turns it forward. And when you stop pedaling, the sound that you hear when you're coasting, that that sounds like a ratchet sound. Um, that's actually the freewheel. And like I said in this picture, you can see that the gears, the cassette, freewheel cassette screws onto that hub that you see in the picture, and that would be the original type of gears that was once started on um, gear bicycles. So cool fact is that this particular freewheel cassette was designed in the 70s. Fun fact. So next picture that we're going to look at is the uh, just it's called just it's just called the cassette. Now this is where they started to take away the freewheel out of the cassette and mount the freewheel body onto the hub. And what this does is it gives us the freedom on changing out our cassettes accordingly. Um, for example, say if you want to, if you're struggling to climb a hill around your area that and you're having issues with it, um, you are able to upgrade your cassette on this freewheel body to have a larger climbing gears, such as if you were running say a 25 tooth climbing gear, you can go on to something that's called a mega gear, which is like a 34, I think, or higher. Um, and now they go up to in the 50s, in the 50 tooth range, because that's what I have on my Sunseeker off-road bike. I put a 50 tooth climbing gear on the back, and um, yeah, that there's so much torque, gives us so much ability to climb at that point. It's crazy, but that could be for a different video. So going back to this type of cassette, because of the smaller spacing per gear, they're able to like for example on the gear that you on the last gear, that's the gear for your top and speed. So this cassette on the lowest on your last on the last gear is a 9-tooth gear, and you know for top end speed that's a lot. They were using this. I imagine in you know back in the day that they were using this style for racing, like street racing, Tour de France, I imagine, and they're in some cases they're still using this type of cassette because of that gear. And to give you a perspective, because the cassette is small, it doesn't take a lot of teeth that goes around each gear to complete a circle. So as time goes on, rims on bikes are getting bigger, and these cassettes, the smaller ones, can only climbing wise can only go up to probably their first gears, and that means the climbing gears. So uh, to 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 turn the mass of a 26-inch rim or higher, you're going to have more teeth on the climbing end of the spectrum. So they went to the standard size of cassette, and that's what this is that you see on the screen right now. Um, um, so the benefit to this cassette right here is that obviously you can fit more teeth on a larger area to make that same circle, because if you don't, then your chain doesn't mesh with the teeth of the gear right. And that's why these cassettes are standard now, because of they're usually typically on bikes that have bigger rims, so to to um to pull these rims to pull these to go uphill efficiently, you're gonna need a bigger climbing gear to climb and not use so much energy and muscle um you know to go up these hills. But here's the thing: our trikes that have 20-inch rims, 20-inch rims do not take a lot of power and muscle to get up to speed. However, because of their size, so because of the 20-inch rims that we have on our tricycles, paired with the standard size of cassette, having the smallest gear, which is our top speed, is 11 compared to non-tooth sprocket on the other cassettes. So with our 20-inch rims compared to the standard cassette, as much as it has a big advantage for climbing, which, like I said, a lot of cassettes, standard cassettes, you can get gears up to 34 to 52 gears now to climb with. But here's the thing with 20-inch rims, that they're already easy to turn. They're easier to go fast at a shorter distances than the 26-inch counterparts and higher. So to not wind out the gear to keep up with the bikes that are 26-inch and more, they're using on these bikes, like, they're using the older type of cassette that is smaller, so they can have the smaller gear for the top and speed. So basically what I'm getting at is that because of that detail, it's harder to source these cassettes for these bikes. I ended up having to go to the Greenspeed company and buying a cassette from them, because I know that the ice bike shares the same hub. So basically the cost of the cassette is around $100. And again, you might say easily that that's outrageous, that's a lot of money, and that is a lot of money. But here, I'm trying to explain that it's because of that cassette is a older design of cassette. It's not as common as the cassettes that you see today, and for like how I explained that before is you needed to redesign a different kind of cassette for the bigger rims to make them perform better at climbing. Because obviously a bigger mass to spin, to turn, if they were still using the older, smaller cassette, you wouldn't be able to climb that well with those cassettes. However, with 20-inch rims, you are. Like I said, the 20-inch rims don't take a lot to spin them when you're going uphill. You don't generally need your outrageous teeth gears to climb. They're very easy to keep spinning up a hill. So therefore, you need, the opposite needs to happen. You need on your top end gears, you need the least amount of teeth possible, and that's why they're using these cassettes on the racing trikes or the trikes that are made to perform. So just know that if you have a ice bike or green speed arrow or any of these bikes that run these types of cassettes, um, most likely or not, you're gonna have to um, especially source these parts, perhaps from the same, obviously, company that you bought the bike from. But I'm just trying to help you understand why that there's these cassettes are so much. It's not exactly because they're, the cassettes themselves are the top of line or anything. It's just because they're technically they're the old design of cassettes. Um, and they just simply moved on to a cassette that works for most big ram tires or bikes or trikes. Um, and it just so happens that the older cassettes, the smaller ones, they work best for the trikes that are running 20-inch rims. I know I basically made this video long just to say that. Just like I said, just know that if you if you are running on the one, an ice bike or a grain speed trike, just for me, I think of it as these bikes are in the tricycle world. They're more like sports cars and or hypercars, So the specialty components that make these things fast and perform, it's just think of it like that, and maybe it's more justifiable. And if especially if you understand on why they have the cost that they do. So in conclusion, um, I'm I'm in the process. I already bought the cassette. It already came in the mail. Yes, it was $100 to me. No, I don't exactly have the money for it, but I kind of I had to sacrifice to get that part. But I at the same time I understand that um like I went down the rabbit hole and figured out why that part was so much. And what I just told you in this video, that's why. Um so does that mean the rest of the bike has all specialty parts? Not really any, not nothing extremely out of the ordinary, but just know that as the cassette goes, yes, that is a part that is kind of not as used. It's not as common, so you're probably gonna have to order it straight from the source of the bike's manufacturer, and that's probably the cost you're looking at and why. Like I said, or you could be saying, well, could we swap the bike to handle, the more mainstream parts? And the answer is yes, but you're going to be losing your top and speed. And those cassettes are focused on more climbing than they are on um like again your top and speed, and with your rim size that you are running, unless you somehow update to a 26-inch rim or higher, um really you're not going to get that speed back. So if you enjoy and wanted to keep your top and speed, um these older smaller cassettes are going to be the way to go. So, um, you know, I guess it's one of those things. It is what it is. I mean, but I wanted to make this video to explain why the cost is so high. So with that said, I hope this video gave you a lot of information and explanation for these older, smaller cassettes that are on the ice bike or ice trike and the green speed trike. Perhaps that will help you justify having to replace your cassettes. So until next time, make sure you have your helmets, bring your water bottles, and be safe out there. And if you haven't already, subscribe, push all the buttons, and bye for now.